Suicide is never an easy topic of discussion, but given the rise in the numbers recorded recently, we have to take a step back and assess what is driving people to take their own lives. More often than not, it is because of pain and suffering that they internalize. And tonight we speak with Lifeline Fiji Officer in Charge, Jeremiah Merukula, to see what we can do to help those conflicted with their burdens. Good evening and welcome to the show.
Naga. Good evening.
So, like we said, it's not an easy topic of discussion, and it's still a taboo subject in the Pacific. You work with Lifeline Fiji. Tell us about what it's like on a day-to-day basis, receiving calls from those who need help.
Naka, Geraldine. With Lifeline Fiji, it has been operating since 2016 now, mostly the core of the business for Lifeline Fiji is suicide prevention, and that is why in 2016 it launched its national crisis toll-free line that focuses on people that are going through crisis emotionally and people who have also have this suicidal ideation, where they could call in and have the phone line as outlets where they could reach out for help. Yes, with the calls that has been coming in, Lifeline Fiji receive average number of calls 10 per day, and sometimes it could be more, sometimes it could be less, and this number fluctuates over the month. And yes, our support officers work tirelessly because it's a 24/7 line. And our support officer works tirelessly during the day, also during the night, responding to calls that comes in there for people that are going through crisis.
Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, despite anyone's best efforts, there are a few that fall through the cracks. And unless I'm wrong, the numbers that we have is 79 just from January until July. And that is an alarming number. It's spread across different age groups, different backgrounds, different ethnicities. This is something that's a silent killer. And what's worse about it is that it's not anyone else that is prompting it. It comes from within. How do you tackle this issue when someone approaches you about suicidal thoughts?
Naka, with suicide, it's impulsive. As you mentioned, you know, we don't know what people go through when they're going through this suicidal ideation. In Fiji, our youngest victim is a 7-year-old who have completed suicide. As you mentioned, from January till July, we have about 79 cases already. If you look at the recent stats, we have 88 completed cases already for suicide just from January to August, and 82 attempted suicide cases. And yes, this is alarming. People, what we always say is that people don't know where are the referral agencies. People don't know where to find help. People don't know where they could turn to for help. And this has caused, you know, the alarming number of suicide rates that has been happening over the years, and especially this year we've seen a trend that it has gone up. I think 10 more from last year, and for us working at from a suicide prevention and mental health organization. This number, you know, is big. Knowing that Fiji is a small country and going through all these sorts of issues that we never have thought of people would go through. People will go through on a daily basis. But you know, looking back on the numbers that we are receiving over the phone as well, just from January till last month, we have received close to 1,500 calls. And on the month of July, we received 290 calls just for the month of July. And majority of our callers were from males. And this is an alarming number. And if you look at the statistics as well, we have about 63, maybe 63 if I'm correct, there are 63 completed cases of suicide this year just from males. And that, gives that red flag for us that, why are people still suffering? Why are people going through this? Are the service providers doing enough to reach out to this individual? Are these individuals know where they're reaching out to, or are the services not visible enough that people could reach out to?
Mm-hmm. When you speak to someone that may not be empathetic to those that are going through their internal struggles and their pains, they may raise the question of, but what they're going through is a trivial matter. It's not a big deal, as in your problems are smaller compared to mine. Those are some of the triggers for those that are going through all of these suicidal thoughts. But of course, with a little bit of research that we did, we found out that there are underlying factors that lead to someone committing the final act of taking their own lives. One of them is, of course, mental health and well-being. Talk to us about that.
Mental health has a huge impact to an individual. We always say that mental health is just as important as physical health. Just how you go out and train, just how you go out and take care of yourself, that's how important you have to take care of yourself first, self too. So when you take care of your mental health, you're taking care of how you feel, how you see, how you taste things. It all combines into your mental health. Take, for example, if you don't take care of your brain, your mental health, and then you do all sort of things that that will trigger these things. Maybe at the later date, or maybe next week or next month, you could see yourself, doing some other things that you won't just see yourself doing. And some of the time, this could trigger back into what you have been going through. Like you mentioned earlier, suicide is the last point where people complete things. So take, for example, this cup of water, and take, for example, if there's a young boy who has been going through struggles, and then today he leave home and then he got a beat up from his parents, and then he went to school, he didn't complete his homework, his teacher again beat him up and told him that you're not a good boy. So he came, and then you start filling this cup of water, and then when he comes to the roadside, he misses the bus and he doesn't have any bus fare, so he has to walk home. So take, for example, he have to walk for an hour. Reaching home, his parents get angry of why is he late. This emotional cup keeps on filling on how the boy feels. And it comes to a point of time where when you keep pouring the water and the water overflows, that's the point where people go through, where they attempt to complete suicide, because it comes to a moment where you can't hold on to those emotions anymore.
We'll put a pin in this and be back after the break. Jerry, when we last spoke, you were talking about one's emotional cup overflowing, and that is when they cannot hold on to things anymore, they cannot process their emotions, they cannot suppress it anymore, and then that's when suicidal thoughts eventuate into suicide itself. There's also the factor that there are underlying mental health issues that they have not been diagnosed with or they have not dealt with themselves. One is anxiety, another is stress, another one is family problems. Talk to us about that.
Pinaka, Geraldine, with these underlying issues, people, take for example, people who suffered TC Winston and who still has that post-traumatic stress disorder. We have callers who calls in whenever there's rain, heavy rain, and they'll call on the line just to ask if there's a cyclone coming. And kids will, this week when there was heavy rain, there's some of the kids who called on the line and asked, is there another hurricane coming? Because they could, somehow or the other, rain and strong winds have linked them up to that memory that they went through during TC Winston. So all these underlying issues, if they are not, as like you mentioned, if they are not rightfully dealt with, these could be triggers of what they go through on a daily basis as well, and to get into the verge of completing suicide. With the relationship, relationship problems, most of the things that we found that people, when they go through these situations, they don't know how to handle it. So some of the things they do, they'll take, for example, they'll harm themselves, and some of them they'll go out and they'll drink all night, and they tend to do things that they don't do. And these, somehow or the other, can lead to people attempting suicide. That is why, for all mental health stakeholders, currently what we're doing, trying to do, is work collaboratively and try to put out the message over there that there are services providers that are available that people could reach out to. If I could just mention a few service providers, there's Lifeline Fiji that provides a helpline, and the number is 132454. There's MSP for kids. It's a child helpline where the number is 1325. With FWCC, the number is 1560. If you're going through domestic violence, and if you're a woman, and if you're going through some issues, they provide counseling as well. And there are some small, they are not small, but there are some other organizations that provide the same support that these organizations provide, like Empower Pacific. And there are some other consultancies like Selina Kurleather. And these are the service providers that are available on the ground that people could reach out to. There's Youth Champs for Mental Health. There are many services for the LGBTI community. There's Diva for Equality, there's House of Chameleon, there's Rainbow Pride Foundation, where people could reach out to. And for us at Lifeline, the amazing thing about it is that we act like paramedics to people that calls in. So when they call in, our first priority is to stabilize them. Once they're stabilized, these are the referral points that we work with. So we try to refer them to these organizations and see, because we know that they get the best help they could get from these organizations when we refer them there. Due to the increasing number of calls that we are getting, we know that we can't work alone on our own corner. So that is why having these agencies, knowing these agencies that they could provide service like this is very important. And if someone is out there going through, hardship, going through some circumstances, there are services available that they could reach out to. Just recently, we've been having the Men's Empowerment Network that is starting to do some programs for men's, and this is a great initiative. Knowing that there is not a lot of support there for men's. If we look at the suicide stats over the years, men's have been completing a lot of suicide than women's. And it's initiatives like this, like what the Men's Empowerment Network that is doing, trying to go around, and also not only them, but the other who has been focusing, who has, come in and trying to do small things around for outlets for men that they could reach out to, is good. Mm-hmm. Knowing that we have a lot of, for women's, it naturally comes. When you go through things, we talk about it. There are service providers that are there. For men's, most of the time when they go through things, they bottle things up, and it comes to that time that they can't hold it anymore, they complete suicide. And that is why most of the statistics now, men's are the most men's are the ones that are completing a lot of suicide.
If you could digress just a little bit, we are in the Pacific, and this phrase, the culture of silence, it's bandied about quite a lot, but it does hold true for instances like this. You've said that men have had higher rates of suicide and also attempted suicide. That's mainly because they bottle things up, they internalize their struggles and their pain. How do we approach this in a way that is not insensitive to cultural backgrounds?
Unaka, just like you mentioned, Geraldine, this culture of silence. This culture of silence we have grown up with over the years, and when we are small, we grew up with it, and it's not something that we come and take it. You know, we just come and then we adopt it over the years. And no, when you start growing up, being a man, you're told to man up. You're not allowed to show emotions. You're not allowed to cry. You have to be the man of the house. You have to go and find food for the family. And most of the time when men grow up, these are the things that is at the back of their head, that they can't show people that they are weak. They are strong, they are masculine, and they have to have that face that they go through. You know, there's a Japanese proverb that said that we have three kinds of faces. The face that the public sees and everyone knows, oh, this is him, this is her. And the face that your family knows when you're going through troubles, they know that, oh, John is going through this, Luke is going through that. And there's the third phase, that the third phase is the phase that when you enter your room, your family doesn't know, your friends doesn't know, only the four corners of your wall, and God knows that phase that you go through. And that is most of the time the phase that we try to deal with every day. And with men's, this is the phase that they hide. They have mastered it. We have mastered hiding this face, because in public we're known as strong. And bringing on that culture of silence, I believe it's time now for parents, especially at home, teaching their kids growing up that even for males, that it's okay for them to cry. It's okay for them to show emotions. It's okay for them to go through things just like everyone else, because everyone is human. That is something that we always advocate first. Before you're someone, you're human first.
Very poignant words there, and warrants more discussion. We'll be back with more after the break. Welcome back. Now let's look at some indicators of someone going through struggles themselves. This is evident in a lot of people. If you talk to 10 people, maybe 6 or 7 out of them will not recognize that they have internal struggles. Some, like we said, have already gone through certain instances that have scarred them for life, but they've repressed everything, which is what we do, and it's not right. Talk to us about some indicators when you self-reflect.
Naka, when we look back and see how people go through these situations, one of the things that right now social media plays a big part of a young person, not only of a young person, for people as a whole. Let me just reflect a bit on social media, because just recently we have had cases of suicide. We have completed cases of suicide, and they have showed what they go through on social media. Facebook, when last 2-3 months, there was this young person who posted on Facebook on his and made it his profile picture that there's no light at the end of the tunnel, and that itself speaks volumes of what a person goes through. When he posted that up, there were comments running in, and there are some negative comments. A week later, he changed his profile photo again, not profile photo, but a cover photo. And then on his cover photo, he said, "One day I'll be gone, and I'll be gone forever." A week down the line, this young person completed suicide. And then when we look back, and then when people look back, they say, "Oh, he was going through a lot of things. He was out, he would be alone. He'd be talking to himself, to friends, and people won't know what he was going through. People thought that he was just, trying to get attention, and sometimes he would end up, arriving home late at night, and his parents won't know where he is, he or she is." And it's, these are small things that people go through, and for someone that is going through suicidal thought, most of the time they feel hopeless. They feel worthless. They feel unwelcomed. They feel that they don't have a place anymore on this earth. And sometimes if people have traumatic experiences, they'll hallucinate, and some of the times you'll see them fidgeting, and you'll see them, some of them they will sweating, some of them they take it out in eating, and things like this. And these are, if you know a person too well, you can identify if the person is not him or her at that point in time. And that is why if it's always important, if you see a friend or a family that is not him or herself at that moment, just to reach out to the person and just check on him or her on how he or she is doing.
Mm-hmm. On that note, there's also a danger of someone pushing someone who's going through something over the edge. We tend to have this idea of, I know more than you.
Yeah.
And if I've gone through something similar, and if you were to have, let's just take that for example, if you were having those thoughts, then when you share with me, then I would tell you, I did it this way, and this is how I made it, and you should be stronger, and you need to do this. Instead of actually helping you process your feelings and your thoughts and your struggles, it could push you over the edge.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yes, that is totally true. And sometimes we think that we know more, that we can help the person that is going through crisis. For a person that is going through crisis, the only thing they need your ears. They just need a friend to sit by over there and listen to what they go through. They just need someone just to be there, just for them to feel their presence, that there's someone cares. If you're going through, if you know that there is someone that goes through crisis, going through crisis at that point in time, don't come in and want to solve the problem. Don't go in, like you mentioned, and try to tell them that you know better, and they have to follow what you have done, because that would help them. People go through different struggles, and people go through different situations every day. Being silent and just being there beside the person means a lot to the person, means a million things to the person. And that is why it's when you're helping someone that is going through things, having an ear just to sit there and hear the person through is enough already. And that gives that person reassurance that you're there, that someone is there that cares for him or her.
If someone were to share with me their feelings and I listen, and I feel like there is a risk involved, that even though they are talking, they are at a tipping point, what do I do?
Thank you. For while you're on that note, something that we usually say at the mental health organization, the ABCD of suicide prevention, and this is first you ask if you know the person is at risk, you ask how is it, how are things going. You check the behaviors. How is he or she behaving at the moment? If something that you have to really be mindful of is your safety as well. Sometimes when people are in that state, they could be really violent. So your safety is important as well. The C is their plan. Do they have any plans to complete suicide? And D is the deterrence. What are some of the things that they could do that could, are like their coping mechanisms, like they could do just to take away the thoughts that they're going through, the thoughts of suicide. And the next thing you could do is, if you know that the person is stable, reach out for help and call. There, like I mentioned, there are services providers that are available that you could call out to that could reach out to for help at that person. You can also call the line with Lifeline Fiji, and we'll also try to facilitate the process from there. So yes, with people that are going through crisis and going through a point where you're over there being present, it's important to know these things. Yeah.
Thank you for that. We'll be back with more after the break. Welcome back. Jerry, let's look at something that's constantly changing, the workplace and the pressures that come with it. In the 21st century, yes, we have set aside time for people to understand that they need to relax and unwind. However, the workplace is still a machine that needs to be fed, and sometimes the pressures really do get to them, and that causes fallouts in the workplace, at home, with friends and family, and also with their lovers. Talk to us about that.
Thank you. We all know that working could be stressful, with the relationships, having partners that are working full time, and if you have kids, you have to really prioritize well. And sometimes these things could get to you personally. Stress management within your workplace, within the spheres around that you work with your colleagues, this is something that should be well looked after by your employees, because over the years, something that we have seen is that majority of the cases that calls in the line are working couples, and something we would try to work with them is how to come up with rosters or family schedules on where both the families would have time together and also have time for their kids. Some of our families, we have working couples who would work tirelessly the whole day, and they would reach home in the evening around 7, 8. They'll just have a few hours with their kids, and then they up to work again early as 5 o'clock in the morning. And sometimes this could be stressful as well, and that could lead to having fights and these sort of things. And also in the workplace.
Correct me if I'm wrong, if one spends too much time in the workplace, you get familiarized with those that you work with, which is where extramarital affairs come in, and there's inappropriateness that creeps in, and all of this, of course, does have a negative effect on them and the workplace.
Yeah, and if you have a family, I believe you have to really know your limits when you're involving yourself around people that you're working with. And something that just recently we've been working with some corporate companies and businesses, providing trainings for them and what the employees go through. So having people, individuals as well, they would go through stressful situations just from workplace of workloads that they have to meet demands, they have to meet targets and all this that they have to meet in a month. And sometimes when they don't meet these targets, when they don't meet these demands, they suffer as well, and they go through this. They get emails, warning emails from their bosses. Some of them get one-to-one sessions with their bosses where they get told off, and sometimes, it gets into the individual person itself, and that is why with organizations, with businesses, it's very important that the employers looks after their employees very well, because their employees play a vital role in the productivity of the workplace as well. Moving forward, something that with some of the corporate houses that we've been working with, we have been for families, for individuals that are going through, coming to work. That is second, third thing that they come and do, and some of them, the workplace is like a coping mechanism to them, where they come in and they stress relieve, and for leaving behind what they go through. That is the only place that they find home, and we don't want to disrupt that, and that is why it's very important that we know our limits, we know our things, and if we don't go, if we know that we can't handle it anymore, we have bosses that we can easily reach out to and go and tell them that I can't meet this. I need some time just to get into myself, and just go back to where you are, so that at the end of the day, you're not at risk, and the company or whatever it is not at risk as well.
Let's look at dependency issues. Like you said, some people treat work as their comfort zone because that's where they find relief. Sometimes it becomes a little too much, where they become overly attached to things that are happening, and detrimental things that happen in the company they take personally. There's also drug dependency that takes place. People are getting involved in drugs, narcotics, psychotropic drugs, and also alcohol abuse. Taking that away from them without having a plan to get them rehabilitated could have them spiraling down suicidal thoughts.
Yeah, that is so true, Geraldine. People, like I mentioned, these to some have been their coping mechanisms, and they have been, this has been their daily lives for years. And it's very important that if you have taken away something, you have to replace it with something more. We always say, one of the illustrations that one of my friends made, he said that this is suicide, and this is a person. So, and this is the coping mechanism. So if the person takes smokes a lot, cigarettes over and over, and then you come in and say you don't have to, and this is suicide, don't take cigarette because it's bad for health and it won't help with the, and all of a sudden you take it away, the person sees suicide straight. So it is very important, if you're telling someone, don't overwork, don't do this, don't do that, you have to make sure that you replace it with something positive and something that could help them. And for people who have for work dependency, They have treated, their work as a place where they come in and they socialize, and that where they can be. It's very important for, if you're having a one-to-one session with them, the techniques and also how you inform them that this is healthy for you, this is not healthy for you. It's very important to put in place something that it could work better for them. Because if no, once you take out that coping mechanism from them, the only thing they see is suicide. And we don't want people seeing that, knowing the rising number of issues, knowing the rising number of things people go through at home personally. Yeah.
We'll be back with our final segment after the break. Welcome back. For our final segment, let's look at stigma. Of course, everyone knows what the stigma is, but let's just quickly look at how we can either remove it or deal with it.
Thank you, Geraldine, for that. Living in a society where, Fijian culture, we love joking. We love just saying things. And these small things triggers into a person. Say, for example, if you're an Itoke, these words, lia lia, ulukau, mbavulu, sese, tavuka, and if you're an Indo-Fijian, pagli, pagla, and all these words that it's a normal thing for us. To be really specific, these are the very things that triggers a person. And when a person grows up, these are the very things that grows up with them. Say, for example, if you're telling a person that he is not worth, he doesn't worth it, he's not he's worthless. And if he grows up he's been getting that from a 5-year-old, 7-year-old, 10-year-old, and he's been getting worthless over the years, he somehow or the other, when he reaches secondary school, he fails his exams, he'll say, oh yeah, I'm worthless. My parents tell that to me. My teachers tell that to me. Everyone says that I can't do things. So the words we use is very important. Most of us, the languages we use, sometimes for families, I come from a village, and I say this boldly that most of us in a Itoke village, our second, third word would come with a swear, and this is a normal thing. And these are the types of things. If you're watching in the village, if you're in a homes, remember these words. These words hits home to a person that you're talking to. So the stigma that is with it, it's huge. And people that are living with mental health issues, they get stigmatized a lot. If we go through our streets, if we go through our towns, people undermine them a lot because as soon as we see them, our assumptions runs and it tells us, oh, they're this, they're that. But some or the other, people that are facing these, all they want is someone to come and talk to them. We have people we have friends on the streets who would sit down, and our assumptions run that they have mental illness, and then when we go and sit with them, then we realize that they're there because they don't have homes to go back to. So, living in our daily life, stigma runs. And that comes naturally to all of us. We love to comment at things. We love to say things just how it is. And having that, it's important that the messages reach out that people matter. Everyone matters. And whatever people go through, whatever life situations they go through, we have to be that beacon of hope that shines and also influence and tells them that that is not the end of it. There's always hope. There's always help. Yeah.
Just a reassurance again, Lifeline Fiji, of course, has qualified people there to deal with those who are going through their burdens.
Yeah, with Lifeline Fiji, most of our staffs are trained crisis support worker. So Lifeline Australia every year comes twice a year and provides a refresher training for all crisis support workers. So in order for you to be on the line, you have to go through trainings, and you have to have go through our practice as well, in order to be a crisis support worker. So yes, Lifeline volunteers and staffs are trained crisis support worker to be on the lines.
Thank you very much for taking time out to come onto the show, and we wish you and the organization all the best in helping those that are struggling.
Pinaka.
That's our show for tonight. If you feel like you need to reach out and talk to someone about your struggles, call Lifeline Fiji toll-free on 132-454. Or if you feel you'd like to make a difference, then customers of Digicel can choose to donate by sending a text message with the word Lifeline Fiji to 176 to have $1 donated towards a suicide prevention organization. Bear in mind that 100% of the money donated will be issued to Lifeline Fiji for their operational costs. We'll see you again next week. Vinaka.